Hi, Gregg Perry, the historic preservationist. Welcome to our next episode. We're going to talk about a tea table. We've covered some tea china. We've covered a breakfast table about a week ago. And this is a bona fide tea table. Typical dimensions are 20 inches by 32, sometimes 36. Generally always rectangular to, be affronted by the sofa. So this example is a George III, somewhere 1760 to 1780. Mahogany, probably Cuban mahogany, Honduran mahogany. But I think with some of the larger waves we're seeing through the top, we're seeing just some nice waves here. I believe it is, and this is probably the end of a crotch. I'm sure the crotch was sitting over here somewhere, and it's very difficult to pick up, but. The construction of these guys were usually done with something about 3/8 of an inch, and the thicker, the more epi you put your top, the more power it's going to have to expand and contract back and forth. So if you had a piece of veneer, you wouldn't have nearly the expansion, contraction, the strength, the movement. You'll have the movement, but you won't have the strength because we have this mitered, we have probably a 3/4 inch high mitered molded edge around it applied to the top. So something that's a 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch thick is not going to force the miters apart too much. So considering we have something from that third quarter of the 18th century, we're seeing some patinization here in the form of cracks. It's very beautiful. And as I, scour down here, I can see some hand plane marks, very vague. I almost imperceptible to feel. Typically, some of these would have had an apron on the side. Now, when I'm seeing the apron side is it's a solid wood, no veneer here. But I can see as it's dried, it was pulled out of the same stock as the top, 3/4 inch, and it's very wavy. So it's beautiful. It feels like not a washboard, but you can feel the drying effect from the hard and soft layers of the cellular structure. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at the top, and then we'll get on the floor and flip it over and look at the underside. But so you have these brackets. They're very nicely done. I mean, you find some that are much more intricate, much more petite, and there's generally a lot of loss in these areas, but these are fairly intact. These are about a 1/4 inch, and there's a beaded molding that runs the perimeter, the lower portion of the apron around. These are just squared off legs, no tapers. The back corner is chamfered here. It's somewhat of a tapered chamfer, very little. I'm seeing a smaller chamfer here, a little bit larger chamfer up here, but it's very unnoticeable. And they ran some molding planes down and actually cut this center bead down into some little dots there. So, or they formed actually beads out of this line that was formed. So very interesting. But again, understatement, very plain. And what you have down here is you have the stretcher system again that's pierced. It's not over the edge, terminated by a center finial here. It's not a drop finial. It's sometimes these are just drops, and sometimes there's actually two. And I think we have somebody behind me here, one of the crew, one of the feline crew. And with the movement of the table back and forth, a lot of times this stretcher system will come apart and will actually break apart. So a lot of repairs. And what happens? Daily use here, these things get kicked, broken, repairs. There's one portion here, right here, that there's a small crack in, but not really worried about that. So and there's a little bit of an abrasion on the outer corner. So this is how I would look at this piece in lieu of purchasing it, if I could find it before I did purchase it, to look at the difficulties, if they were easily remedied or not, and everything here is pretty much on board. A lot of these you'll find that the legs, when the legs dried, remember this was put together totally green, and that's why we're finding this rippling effect of the drying of the apron down here. And but a lot of times the legs, when they dried, oh my God, they belly back in, they go this way, they go that way. So. Okay, well let's get on the floor. We're going to flip this guy over and take a look at the bottom. So viewing underneath, what I'm seeing here is these are the glue blocks. They're all replacements. Anyone that would have worked on this, and let me make it very clear, one person would have built this entire table back in the day. That would have been his responsibility. So you would have had glue blocks on here that would have been chamfered, and they would have been placed symmetrically around the perimeter of the interior apron. This is a hodgepodge, so it's telling me these glue blocks, a lot of them had fallen off and got lost, and then somebody else just kind of cuts what they have and puts on over the years. It's a lot of years, approaching 300 years for something like this. So it's a lot of years of use, a lot of years of this piece of timber going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and for everything to fall off and the glue, the hide glue, to let go. So these have been replaced, and this has been added. And I'm sure maybe at one time it started to buckle, or somebody was afraid and they flipped it upside down and they really glued this. I can't see any fasteners, any screws or nails, but they really glued it down. And in addition, it's probably mortised into the side. So was this original? I don't know. It looks like it's a piece of white pine. I can feel on the sides of the aprons, I can feel, the molding planes, the smoothing planes, the plane marks as the timber is dried out. So, and you can see, I can see down, all along here, you can see the high figure that's in the sides of the apron. So it's telling me, again, anyone out there that thinks it's a veneer, it's not a veneer, because I'm looking at all this figure that's in the inside of the apron. So, and so everything looks good. I mean, all the fretting looks original, and down here, let's see, and there's just some tick marks and things like that. So, I mean, as far as a patina goes, I think we're going to let this guy sit the way it is and just enjoy it for what it is, and get set up for a high tea or two in the near future. So, if anyone is interested, come visit us at our podcast address at Spotify and Apple, The Historic Preservationist. And we have 2 Historic Preservationist video channels, one, The Historic Preservationist, and the other, Historic Preservationist. Gregg Perry, thanks all for listening.